Hello,
Emily,
Samantha.
it's such a great day.
Yeah, it's raining. Yeah, but a lot of plants are very happy,
I
so
know
that's
we have
good.
these raspberry plants that are totally divas and they get a little bit dry and then they're like,
That's exactly how I am too when I get a little bit dry
yeah.
all over.
What's
All
on
right.
your mind today,
Well, of the
Emily?
many topics that we are excited to talk about, I want to bring up one that's really an interesting one, I think, outside of the tech community, to mission-driven tech, but it's really important in this one. And just it's something that we've talked about before, the kind of relationship that you can have with colleagues and peers to feel that and yourself, to feel that you can have civil disagreements with
Mhm.
each other and not have the same opinions on things and still be able to work together and be productive in these topics. So,
There's something that feels easier about like a like a technology feature disagreement of being like, oh, like I think that like you should consolidate your automation
yeah,
because I heard
you
that's a
use
best practice.
Java or Python.
Yeah, yeah. Like I think this one would be better for what you're trying to do.
Right.
That
Vendor
I like
picking.
feel like I can give people my opinion on that sometimes more easily than I can be like talking like disagreeing with people maybe about a social media post or a rationale or
Mhm. Well, I'm going to disagree with a framing,
a
if
framework.
that's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
So what I
And
want
Emily,
to
you've done this really well with disagreeing with the no code, low code stuff. Like I think that that is like a really great example of like a respectful, but also like confident and in your power and in your voice way of saying there's this trend that's happening that a lot of people seem really excited about. And I'm excited about it, but I also like have reservations about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And together, I think we've done something similar with this like spreadsheet versus database argument, where we've really challenged people to say spreadsheets are databases in the most formal definition, and here's the ways to deal with both. Yeah. So the thing that most recently brought this up to me is that I got a really lovely email from a lovely organization, Tech Impact, who I love and would suggest to others to follow. So again, it's this like I can be excited and disagree at the same time.
Mhm.
But I'm going to show you, it's an event, a webinar coming up next week. I signed up for the webinar. I'm excited. In fact, a colleague of mine signed up too, so we get to debrief afterwards. And the topic is shadow IT systems. Familiar with these, Samantha, or what this phrase means?
I've heard of it. I might even have some of my own.
So just that name, shadow IT systems, already brings, a kind of connotation to this. And look at the first like sentence, lurking in the dark corners of your organization. So
Honestly, like it's Pride Month. It makes me think of like being in the closet versus out of the closet.
okay, that analogy may or may not work
Yeah.
with my issue with this. So the concept of wanting data to be in centralized systems, wanting your users to use the same systems, all of that I agree with, and finding ways. It's one of my absolute joys in life to find ways to take us out of the thing I love, spreadsheets, and into more established systems, if that is the right path. But the framing of this, that shadow IT systems are this nightmare
Mm-hmm.
lurking in the shadows, I highly disagree with this framing. And I would much rather see it framed as a positive, a kind of a tap on the back for folks for
Creativity,
getting it
proaction.
done, like
Yeah.
pure nonprofit chutzpah, go-getterness, like
Yeah.
it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter if you're the IT person and somehow you get put in charge of running the big gala event, even though that's not your job. I feel like anyone working in nonprofit is going to at least be like, okay, well, how could I possibly maybe try to do that? Like we just take on so many jobs. So I think it's a real learning ground. You get to learn from your users, their preferred methods, what they like, what they're doing, what's working for them, why they don't want to necessarily go into your, centralized systems. I really think what we think of as shadow IT systems are both healthy for tech ecosystems in some times, and really a place to have positivity around tech learning and tech growth for people in our organizations. And this kind of framing, I don't know who, is exactly getting, I'm getting the emails because I'm on the tech impact listserv. But I think if I were coming to this as someone who uses an Excel tracker to do my work and get my services out to the people I'm just desperately trying to help and serve, and I saw this kind of framing, that I would not necessarily want to engage.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, I got something that sparked, I think, some parallel thoughts for me, which is I got some emails this week about a relatively new organization that is being established by someone who I think is wonderful, who I think is incredibly rigorous in her thinking, smart, strategic, experienced. This organization is going to do stuff about mitigating bias and bad outcomes from tech, and how that impacts social movements. So clearly this is something that is very near and dear to my heart. And it had this connotation that was sort of like all tech is bad. But I was like, wait a second, what did you use to send out this email? You have a website, you have an email database, you have, you have tech infrastructure that's even allowing you to be able to connect with people about this campaign, about the negative impacts of some kinds of tech. And so I think that what I was reacting to most was the like black and white thinking of all tech is bad. And that makes me feel disempowered, because what I want is for more people who work in social movements to actually feel like they have agency with tech.
Yes.
So, yeah. So, and I haven't like said anything to the people, and also multiple people have like forwarded this to me because they're like, look, it's about tech and social movements. And I was like, wow, I like couldn't agree and disagree more at the same time about this whole new enterprise.
We need a Venn diagram for it, actually.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, right.
Maybe we should do a separate session for these on Venn diagrams.
We have this like Venn diagram that's like tech is enabling social movements to do great things, and also like tech is causing so much injustice that we need social movements to be able to remedy.
Yeah, it can be abused. It can be used by bad actors. Yeah,
or it needs to be regulated. All that stuff.
Yeah, it's tough when the framing is, you would want to see it done a different way, and you worry, you get concerned that the topic itself will lose its drive, or that it will lose people to talk about it because of the framing. Not that everyone's gonna, respond to my framing either, or yours, but
well, right. And the thing is that I think people are incredibly excited about this. Like all of these people emailed it to me and was like, hey, did you hear about this? And I was like, yeah.
Right. And a coworker of mine said they signed up for this webinar also that I signed up for, and they were super excited to hear about it, because they're feeling overwhelmed with the idea that people are using technology that they're not in control of and that they have a handle on, because it's their best, intentions to have work flowing in the appropriate ways, in the best ways.
So here's my first like change my mind moment of this video, is like I had this reaction of judgment towards this particular email, and yet other people thought it was really cool enough to send it to me. So while I'm thinking, oh, this doesn't resonate, clearly it does. Clearly it resonates with people. And so,
so what does that mean though? What does that mean?
Yeah. And same with your webinar, right? You signed up for it, your friend signed up for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It resonated with me in a way.
Yeah. Right. Maybe you signed up for it as a cynic, but you're still going to like put energy towards this idea.
Yeah, definitely.
Or
Yeah,
maybe a
it's definitely.
skeptic is better than a cynic. Yeah.
Actually, though, I wonder if it does bring up a cool thought around how people learn or how they receive information, and that same like mind change moment that it instead of just being maybe in opposition or on a different side to a thing, to find the place for both our approaches and frameworks in the work.
I saw a post in a professional Slack that I'm in about not about shadow systems like a spreadsheet, but about people using their work email to sign up for like Dropbox if you, but their org already has like Box or something like that. And there's like a security, the org sees it as like a security risk. And also like if that person leaves their job and they have all of their files in a different system, like so there was this like there's this conversation about how do you stop people from signing up for products. And you know, one of my first reactions was like, what what do you think is going to happen? But also it gave me another perspective about the possible downstream effects of generally I think shadow systems are good. I just made 2 of them yesterday. One was my own tracker for something I'm building. Even though we also kind of have this project management sheet, but I like don't always have access to it, and it's not exactly in the format that I would pick. Then, and also thinking about this other example where some of my staff want to add a field to the database, and I like don't think that it's fleshed out enough, and I am not sure about doing back coding, and also I'm not sure who's going to fill it out in the future. So I was just like, you can export the data and add any columns that you want, but like I'm not gonna maintain them for you. And I was just like, I just handed people a platter of shadow system, like here you go.
Can we try to rename it though together? I mean, nonprofits, we love renaming everything, so I feel like we can come up with something.
Yeah.
So shadow is implying that it's the lurkingness, it's that it's like not your full image, it's like a partial image because you're not getting all the updated information from your full image. So I get the shadow framework. How can we still talk about them not as shadows?
Like I think of it as like DIY.
I like DIY.
But I also
was thinking extracurricular for some reason.
Yeah. Like intramural.
Intramural. Yeah. Club systems.
Yeah.
Community driven systems.
Yeah. Your connotation of what shadow means to you made me actually think about this scene from the old play version that's a movie of Peter Pan when Wendy sews on her shadow. And that actually just makes me think about how shadows are actually very connected. And sometimes they
have their own life, right? Doesn't Peter Pan's shadow go off into his own thing?
Sometimes they're big and sometimes they're small. And I just think about how, like, I can't remember now if it was Peter who wanted a shadow or if it was Wendy, but basically they wanted it to stay with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just such a sweet part. Like I watched that movie a lot when I was a kid, but it's like, there's just so much like caring and nurturingness and also like curiosity about the science of how what is a shadow and how does it really work?
Yeah, I love what you're saying. So we could potentially still use the word shadow, but really reframe, like instead of what we saw with this like lurking in the nightmare scenes, we could say how we could talk about it in terms of more positive.
It's a reflection of
or a window.
Yeah.
Because you get to see into it. Yeah. Okay. So I officially put out an open call to anyone listening to rename shadow systems or just redefine them in a positive way and tell us about the ones you're using. And I'm happy to share the ones I'm using. You know what I actually like to call these bridge systems? And I build them
Ooh.
specifically when I take on work like this. I say, if we're going to build a system outside of either an official platform that exists already, or because we can't yet afford to get into a new platform, we're building a bridge tool that we know is going to be temporary to the tune of whatever, 6 months, 6 years. But
And what
the
you just
idea
said
is to
is
connect.
also not only for system, but also for a feature. You know, sometimes I'm like, oh, you want to add a field that's going to put everything into a category. Well, why don't you do that in a spreadsheet and show me that the categories you came up with actually work? And
Yep.
then I can import it and make it part of the quote unquote real system.
Yeah, I love that. Positive shadows and bridges and whatever else anyone can come up with.
We
But
want to
I
hear
like
from
that.
you.
We really do. We
Yeah.
really do.
So we want to hear from you about two things. One is we want to hear from you about your um, shadow bridge
Your systems, yeah. What do you
systems,
do?
and how you feel about them. And then we also want to hear from you about how you handle like professional feedback, like feedback about professional frameworks that are evolving all the time, and how you really can contribute to the dialogue. And for me, it's like turning off the like judgment brain, but also like choosing to engage.
That
Yeah,
is so beautiful. And it really connects to one last thing I wanted to throw in here is the connection to mindfulness in this work, which, mindfulness will say, similar to what you said, to look directly at the thing and not to judge, not to hold judgment on it necessarily, just to look at it and to deal with it. And
yeah,
also there's an idea, in mindfulness and Buddhist teachings that pain, struggles, suffering, these are not like negative things to run away from. These are actual parts of life that we can manage and deal with. And I think that's the same with shadow systems in some ways. Like they're not something to run away from in a nightmare necessarily. We can acknowledge and bring into the light and
yeah.
hold true that they can be for time and can move on from them.
Ooh, temporary systems.
Temporary systems, yeah.
Maybe temporary, maybe not.
Yeah, maybe there's ad hoc.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of ideas. Okay, great. We've started the idea pile. I can't wait to hear what others contribute to it.
Thank you, Emily.
Thanks, Samantha.